Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome to Chat Plus. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Tonight we have reciters. We have Sanskrit reciter Gaurangi Mataji, and we have English reciter Sonal Mataji. We will be reading from Canto 3, Chapter 24, verses 33 to 47. Gaurangi Mataji, when you're ready, please start with the invocations. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Dandavat Pranam Mataji. Okay, so shall I share Mataji?
Yes, please.
Okay, Mataji. So I'm reading from this Devnagari. I cannot recite from English, so a little bit different. So apologize for me that Mataji. Hare
That's
Krishna.
okay, Mataji. Please start with
Okay.
the invocation. Om Namo
Okay.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya 3 times, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Param Pradhanam Purusham Mahantam Kalam Kavim Trivritam Lokapalam Atmanubhutyanugata Prapamcham Sochanda Saktim Kapilam Prapade.
I surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, descended in the form of Kapila, who is independently powerful and transcendental, who is the Supreme Person and the Lord of the sum total of matter and the element of time, who is the fully cognizant maintainer of all the universes under the three modes of material nature, and who absorbs the material manifestations after their dissolution.
अस्माभिपृच्छे अद्यापतिं प्रजानं तोयावतीर्णा उर्णा उताप्तकामः परिव्रजात पदवीमस्थितोऽहं चरिष्ये त्वं हृद्युञ्जन् विशोकः.
Today I have something to ask from you, who are the Lord of all living entities. Since I have now been liberated by you from my debts to my Father, and since all my desires are fulfilled, I wish to accept the order of an itinerant mendicant. Renouncing this family life, I wish to wander about, free from lamentation, thinking always of you in my heart.
श्रीभगवानुवाच मया प्रोक्तं हि लोकस्य प्रमाणं सत्यलौकिके अथा जानीमया तुभ्यं यदवोचामृतं मुने.
The personality. Oh. Sorry, I'll just start again. The personality of Godhead Kapila said, "Whatever I speak, whether directly or in the scriptures, is authoritative in all respects for the people of the world. O Muni, because I told you before that I would become your son, I have descended to fulfill this truth."
एतन्मे जन्म लोके अस्मिन् मुमुक्षूणां दुराशयात् प्रसङ्ख्यानाय तत्त्वानां सम्मताय आत्मदर्शने.
My appearance in this world is especially to explain the philosophy of Sankhya, which is highly esteemed for self-realization by those desiring freedom from the entanglement of unnecessary material desires.
एषा आत्मा पथो अव्यक्तो नष्टः कालेन भूयसा तं प्रवर्तायुतं देहामिमं विद्धि मया वृतम्.
This path of self-realization, which is difficult to understand, has now been lost in the course of time. Please know that I have assumed this body of Kapila to introduce and explain this philosophy to human society again.
Gaccha kamam maya aprishta mahi sanyasta karmana jyutta sudurjayam mrityum amritaya mam bhaja.
Now, being sanctioned by me, go as you desire, surrendering all your activities to me. Conquering insurmountable death, worship me for eternal life.
Mama atmanam swayam jyotihi sarvabhuta guhasayam atmanya va atmanad vichya viswako abhayam ritsasi.
In your own heart, through your intellect, you will always see me, the supreme self-effulgent soul dwelling within the hearts of all living entities. Thus you will achieve the state of eternal life, free from all lamentation and fear.
Matra adhyatmikim vidyam samanim sarvakarmanam vitarisyeya chaso bhayam chati tarishyati.
I shall also describe this sublime knowledge, which is the door to spiritual life, to my mother so that she also can attain perfection and self-realization, ending all reactions to fruitive activities. Thus, she also will be freed from all material fear.
Maitreya vacha evam samudita astina kapilena prajapatihu dachini kritya tam prito vanameva jagamha.
Sri Maitreya said, thus, when Kardama Muni, the progenitor of human society, was spoken to in fullness by his son Kapila, he circumambulated him, and with a good pacified mind, he at once left for the forest.
Vratam sa astito monam atma kai kasarano muniho nisango vyacharatma chonim agnira nikitana tanaha.
The sage Kardama accepted silence as a vow in order to think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and take shelter of him exclusively. Without association, he travelled over the surface of the globe as a sannyasi, devoid of any relationship with fire or shelter.
Mano brahmani yunjana yatat sada sataha param guna bhavasi viguna eka bhaktyano bhaviti.
He fixed his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parabrahman, who is beyond cause and effect, who manifests the three modes of material nature, who is beyond those three modes, and who is perceived only through unfailing devotional service.
Can you do a little bit down, Mataji? I cannot see. Okay, thank you. Niranghang kriti nirmamsa nirdanda samadik swadik pratyak prasanta dhira dhiraha prasanto mir ribodadhi.
Thus he gradually became unaffected by the false ego of material identity and became free from material affection. Undisturbed, equal to everyone, and without duality, he could indeed see himself also. His mind was turned inward and was perfectly calm, like an ocean unagitated by waves.
Vasudeve Bhagavati Sarvage Pratyagat Atmani Parena Bhakti Bhavena Labdha Atma Mukta Vandanaha.
He thus became liberated from conditioned life and became self-situated in transcendental devotional service to the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, the omniscient supersoul within everyone.
Atmanam Sarvabhutesu Bhagavantamavasthitam Apasyat Sarvabhutani Bhagavatyapi Chatmani.
He began to see that the Supreme Personality of Godhead everyone's heart. He is the supersoul of everyone.
Ichchadvaisa vihinena sarvatra samachetasa bhagavad bhakti yuktena prapta bhagavati gatiho.
Freed from all hatred and desire, Gardama Muni, being equal to everyone because of discharging uncontaminated devotional service, ultimately attained the path back to Godhead.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you so much to the both of you for the wonderful recitation. So welcome to the next Chad class. And we'll be finishing off the last few verses of this chapter. So we'll start, as always, with the Mangala Charan, and then we can start. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So I'll just share the verses on the screen. Okay, so Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 24, and we are doing texts 44 to 47. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nirahankriti nirmamascha nirdvandva samadrik swadrik pratyak prashanta dhir dhira prashantor mirivodadihi. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Thus he gradually became unaffected by the false ego of material identity and became free from material affection. Undisturbed, equal to everyone, and without duality, he could indeed see himself also. His mind was turned inward and was perfectly calm, like an ocean unagitated by waves. Purport. Would anyone like to volunteer to read the purport for us?
May I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. When one's mind is in full Krishna consciousness and one fully engaged in rendering devotional service to the Lord, he becomes just like an ocean unagitated by waves. This very example is also cited in Bhagavad Gita. Once you become like the ocean is filled by many thousands of rivers, and millions of tons of its water evaporates into clouds. Yet the ocean is the same unagitated ocean. The laws of nature may work, but if one is fixed in devotional service at the lotus feet of the Lord, he is not agitated, for he is a introspective. He does not look outside to the material nature, but he looks into the spiritual nature of his existence. With a sober mind, he simply engaged in the service of the Lord. Thus, he realized his own self without false identification with matter and without affection for material possession. Such a great devotee is never in trouble with others because he sees everyone from the platform of spiritual understanding. He sees himself and other in the right perfect state.
Thank you,
Hare Krishna.
Mataji. Hare Krishna. Okay, so quite a few points that we can take from here. So, first of all, where it's saying, that he became unaffected by the false ego of material identity. So, what is that? What is that false ego of material identity? As we know, it is thinking, I am my body. I am this material body. That is my identity. Yeah, that is essentially the false ego of material identity. So here it's explaining, that he's becoming, or he has become unaffected by this. And not only that, but he's become free from material affection. So what is material affection? Material affection, obviously, it's affection on the material platform, on the platform of the body. So basically, it's when we only have affection for those that we are connected with, or we have a relationship with, or that we know, because there's some connection on the material platform. So that means they could be our family, our relatives, or they could be our countrymen, those who are from the city, or it could be our, fellow, like those who are of the same religion, or same, they're into the same interest, or, whatever it might be, but we're connecting on the basis of material things. We're thinking, I am an Indian, and therefore I have affection for other Indians, and I'm very proud to be Indian, but I don't have affection for other people. That's just one example. Or I only have affection for those who are also Hindu, but not others. Um, now, someone might say, if it's on the connection of the same religion, is that not a spiritual basis rather than material basis? But ultimately, we understand on the spiritual platform, the nature of the soul is not to be, Hindu or Christian or Muslim or Jewish or whatever it might be. Yeah, that's not the nature of the soul. We never hear that, the soul is Satchidananda Hindu or something like that. We never hear anything like that. So, ultimately, this is still, you could say, on a higher level of the same platform. But yeah, so here it's saying that he's even become free from this material affection. And so what does that mean? Obviously, that means he has, it doesn't mean he doesn't have any affection, but it means he has spiritual affection. And in terms of his identity, um, it's not the false ego material identity. Instead, it's the real ego of our spiritual identity. And then, we can see also, like Srila Prabhupada says in the purport. Yeah, so here, where is it? This very example is also cited in Bhagavad Gita. One should become like the ocean. So Srila Prabhupada, here he's referring to Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, text 70. So I'll just read the translation to that. So a person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. And then in the purport to that same verse, Srila Prabhupada says that a Krishna conscious man is not in need of anything because the Lord fulfills all his material necessities. So, yeah, obviously we all have these material necessities while we're in a material body, and we cannot neglect those material necessities. So then one might think, if we're just fully engaged in devotional service, then how will we look after the material necessities? But in that purport, Prabhupada is saying essentially that not to worry. If we're fully engaged in devotional service, then Krishna will surely look after those material necessities. And then again in the same purport of chapter 2, text 70, Prabhupada also says, because he remains satisfied in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he can remain steady like the ocean and therefore enjoy full peace. So it's because that soul is engaged in devotional service that they're satisfied. So why is it that devotional service is so satisfying? Well, obviously, we understand it's because devotional service is in our nature. It's what the soul is meant to be doing. It's the purpose. It's our purpose, to engage in devotional service, to have that loving relationship with the Lord. So obviously, if we are fulfilling our purpose, then that's going to be satisfying for us, for the soul. So that's why if such a soul is fully engaged in devotional service, then they never feel unsatisfied, and they never feel, oh, maybe I want to do, maybe I want to take a break, from devotional service, and do some material activities and then come back. um, but no, it's not like that. They're always completely satisfied. And Prabhupada again makes this point. Yeah. So he says, that he looks into the spiritual nature of his existence, and with a sober mind, he simply engages in the service of the Lord. So it's the same point that I just mentioned. And then we see also here, he sees himself and others in the right perspective. So that means, like we were saying, the opposite of, material identity, seeing our material identity and other people's material identity. But here it's seeing in terms of our relationship with Krishna, and when it's seeing other people in terms of their relationship with Krishna. So we understand, just as we have eternal loving relationship with Krishna, so does every other living entity. So that is the real platform, and then from that platform, we'll be able to develop not material affection, but spiritual affection. So before we can, so like it's shown here, identity is mentioned first, and then afterwards affection. So first we have to understand our spiritual identity and others' spiritual identity, and then obviously Krishna's identity as well, understand who Krishna is, and then we can start to develop that affection. So the understanding has to come first. Obviously, if we don't understand someone, we don't know someone very well, if we don't know Krishna very well, how can we develop that affection? And we see so many examples that devotees, they find out about Krishna, or they hear about Krishna. Like we have the example of Rukmini Devi. But yeah, just by hearing about Krishna, understanding Krishna, then that affection can come. So also, yeah, so it's like this thing about seeing ourselves and others in the right perspective is like that analogy of the dust on the mirror, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Because when we clean that mirror, obviously then we can see ourselves clearly. But then obviously when you're in front of a mirror, you're looking in the mirror, and if there's anyone right next to you or anyone around you, then obviously you will also see them clearly in that mirror as well. So similarly, when we clean the mirror of our heart, then not only we see ourselves properly through that clean mirror, but also others as well. Okay, so yeah, so we'll move on because we have 3 more texts, and the next one it's got a longer purport. Okay, so text 45. Vasudeve Bhagavati Sarvagye Pratyagatmani Parena Bhakti Bhavena Labdhatma Mukta Bandhanaha. He thus became liberated from conditioned life and became self-situated in transcendental devotional service to the personality of Godhead Vasudev, the omniscient supersoul within everyone. Do we have another volunteer to read the first paragraph here?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I will read.
Yes, go ahead. Thank you,
Okay.
Mataji.
No worries. So, purport. When one engages in the transcendental devotional service of the Lord, one becomes aware that his constitutional position as an individual soul is to be eternally a servitor of the Supreme Lord. Vasudeva, self-realization does not mean that because the Supreme Soul and the individual soul are both souls, they are equal in every respect. The individual soul is prone to be conditioned, and the Supreme Soul is never conditioned. When the conditioned soul realizes that he is subordinate to the Supreme Soul, his position is called Labdhatma, Labdhatma, self-realization, or Mukta Bandhana, freedom from material contamination. Material contamination continues as long as one thinks that he is as good as the Supreme Lord or is equal with him. This condition is the last snare of Maya. Maya always influences the conditioned soul. Even after much meditation and speculation, if one continues to think himself one with the Supreme Lord, it is to be understood that he is still in the last snare of the spell of Maya. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Anyone else would like to read the second
Can I do,
paragraph?
please? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Another word mentioned here is Sarvagni. The super soul sitting within the heart is all cognizant. He knows. Sorry,
this paragraph.
Yeah, the word parena is very significant. Para means transcendental, untinged by material contamination. Full consciousness that one is an eternal servant of the Lord is called para-bhakti. If one has any identification with material things and executes devotional service for attachment of some material gain, that is vidya bhakti, contaminated bhakti. One can actually become liberated by execution of para-bhakti. Continue.
Okay, yeah, sure, thank you.
Another word mentioned here is Sarvagni. So super soul sitting within the heart is all cognizant. He knows, I may forget my past activities due to the changes of the body, but the Supreme Lord, as Paramatma is sitting within me, he knows everything. Therefore, the result of my past karma or past activities is awarded to me. I may forget, but he awards me suffering or enjoyment for the misdeeds or good deeds of my past life. One should not think that he is freed from reaction because he has forgotten the actions of his past life. Reactions will take place. And what kind of reactions there will be? As judged by the super soul, the witness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you all for reading. Okay, so first of all, here in the purport, Prabhupada says, becoming aware that his constitutional position as an individual soul is to be eternally a servitor of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. So again, just like we are mentioning in regards to the previous verse, about what is the nature of the soul, is to serve the Supreme Lord. So we already mentioned before that is why devotional service brings us satisfaction, because it is fulfilling our nature. And then we hear about the conditioned soul realizes that he is subordinate to the Supreme Soul. So, we are always subordinate in any situation. We can never become, fully equal to the Lord, like it's being explained here. So if we do think that, Prabhupada is saying here, that is material, that if we do think that our material contamination continues, so our understanding, which we've heard, we've heard this countless times, but the understanding is that although we are equal in quality to the Lord, Satchidananda, but we are never equal in quantity. We are, not equal in quantity by any means at all. We are very, very tiny in comparison. So then, Prabhupada is saying, he's saying if one has any identification with material things and executes devotional service for attainment of some material gain, that is Vidya Bhakti, contaminated Bhakti. So essentially we can understand here, because it's saying if we're executing it for attainment of some material gain, that is contaminated. So that means that essentially our motive is what determines whether our devotional service is pure or contaminated. So is it for attainment of material gain, or is it simply to serve Krishna out of affection, out of love? And that determines whether it's pure or not. So then, sorry. Also, we see in the third paragraph, so the Supreme Lord as Paramatma is sitting within me, he knows everything. This is like we always hear about the analogy of the two birds sitting in the same tree. They're sitting on the same branch of a tree, and one bird, which represents us, the soul, is simply engaged in enjoying the fruits of that tree, and then the other tree is there sitting on the same branch, and it represents the super soul, and it's simply watching, witnessing what we're doing, knows everything we are doing, and through that, like it says here, the result of my past karma or past activities is awarded to me. And that bird is just the super soul. That bird is just sitting there patiently watching, but also, hoping that one day the other bird will turn around and actually look at the Lord and turn to the Lord and try to reawaken their relationship with the Lord. That is, the Lord is waiting patiently, or you could say impatiently, for us all to come back and continue that loving relationship which we once had, but we cannot remember. So then, so one should not think that he's freed from reaction because he has forgotten the actions of his past life. So basically, there are always consequences to our actions. We know this, but we need to understand from here as well that those consequences might not occur in the same lifetime that we committed those actions. So another example we can give is in the Mahabharata. One of the personalities in the Mahabharata, Dhritarashtra, we understand, he lost his 100 sons. And, and then at one point after the battle, he's asking Krishna, why did this happen? Why did I have to lose all my 100 sons? And then the Lord explains that, 50 lifetimes ago, you were essentially like a hunter, and there's two different versions of this story. But anyway, one of them is that, there's a bird, and this was like the father bird, and Dhritarashtra was trying to hunt that bird, and he missed. He wasn't able to kill it. And then he saw that this bird had a nest with 100 chicks in there. So he basically destroyed that nest and killed the 100 babies of that bird. And then, therefore, in this lifetime, or 50 lifetimes later, Krishna is explaining that is why you had to lose your 100 sons. But then he's asking, Dhritarashtra is asking, okay, but why did it take 50 lifetimes, for this to happen? Why did I have to wait so long? But then Krishna explains that, to have children, to have a son, you need some piety, you need some pious credits. So in order for you to develop enough of that to have 100 sons, it took you 50 lifetimes to develop all that piety, and then you were finally qualified to have 100 sons. So, we can clearly see there that whatever we do, there's always going to be consequences, but it may not happen straight away. As we know, karma is a very complicated system which only Krishna can, fully understand. And, because it's so complex, there's so many things that has to figure into it. But we can't escape it. That's the point. So we'll move on to the next text, text 46. Atmanam sarvabhuteshu bhagavantam avastitam apashyat sarvabhutani bhagavatyapi chatmani. He began to see that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is seated in everyone's heart, and that everyone is existing on him because he is the super soul of everyone. So that everyone is existing on the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not mean that everyone is also Godhead. This is also explained in Bhagavad Gita. Everything is resting on him, the Supreme Lord, but that does not mean that the Supreme Lord is also everywhere. This mysterious position has to be understood by highly advanced devotees. There are three kinds of devotees: the neophyte devotee, the intermediate devotee, and the advanced devotee. The neophyte devotee does not understand the techniques of devotional science, but simply offers devotional service to the deity in the temple. The intermediate devotee understands who God is, who is a devotee, who is a non-devotee, and who is innocent, and he deals with such persons differently. But a person who sees that the Lord is sitting as Paramatma in everyone's heart, and that everything is depending or existing on the transcendental energy of the Supreme Lord, is in the highest devotional position. So, I guess just a question for you guys. I'm sure it'll be an easy question, but can someone tell us, we're mentioning these three kinds of devotees. So what is the Sanskrit terms for these three kinds of devotees? Can anyone tell us?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Kanishta and Madhyam and Uttamadhikari. Madhyamadhikari, Kanishthadhikari, and Uttamadhikari.
Yes, thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So the neophyte devotee, the Kanishta devotee, their focus is on the deity, but they don't know how to deal with others, how to deal with devotees, how to have relationships with devotees. They don't understand the importance of it, the significance of it. Whereas all of us here, we understand how important how supremely important devotee association is. We can't get very far without it, but the neophyte devotee doesn't understand this point. But obviously, the intermediate devotee, the madhyamadikari, they do, and they know that we have to deal with different people in different ways. Yes, we understand everyone is equal, but treating everyone equal doesn't mean treating them in exactly the same way, but treating them in the way which is most suitable for them and ultimately which will help them. When he's saying that he deals with these people differently, it's ultimately to try and help them, to try and elevate them. So obviously those who are newer, or to those who are neophyte devotees, they're very compassionate, very merciful, try to help them and guide them. And then those who are on the same kind of level, those who are peers, have friendly relationships with them. And then those who are on a higher level, offer respects to them and, try and serve them, follow their instructions like that. And then obviously that final stage is the Uttama Adhikari. And they're seeing, just like that other verse in the Bhagavad Gita, they're seeing the Lord in everyone's heart. So anyway, what I wanted to say on this verse, so here where it says, this is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita, that everything is resting on him, the Supreme Lord, but that does not mean that the Supreme Lord is also everywhere. So again, Prabhupada is referring to the Bhagavad Gita, and this time he is referring to chapter 9, text 4. And I'll read the translation. So, by me in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So then, what does this mean? It's saying, in my unmanifested form. So what is the unmanifested form? So then in the purport to that verse, in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says, the energy of the Lord is spread all over the creation, and everything is resting in that energy. Yet one should not conclude that because he is spread all over, he has lost his personal existence. So the unmanifested form that Krishna is talking about is his energy. And then Prabhupada mentions that here as well. Everything is depending or existing on the transcendental energy of the Supreme Lord. So, so that's why it's saying, that's why Krishna is saying that all beings are in me, but I am not in them. So that second part, that I'm not in them. So he's there everywhere through his energy, but not necessarily in his personal form, his original personal form as Krishna, as Govinda, Shyam Sundar, with the flute in the threefold bending form. No, but he's there in his energy. And in the same purport to that verse in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada explains this. And, he's talking about a king and the king's government. And he says, the different governmental departments are nothing but the energies of the king, and each department is resting on the king's power. But still, one cannot expect the king to be present in every department personally. So, the different departments of the government, of the kingdom, the king, he has his servants, his followers, to work for him, and they're kind of, running all the various departments, managing all the various departments, and the king is above all of them, but he's not necessarily, he's not necessarily personally there in all of these different areas, different departments. So similarly, through Krishna's energy, through Krishna's agents, through the demigods and other means, everything is happening, everything is existing, and everything is going on, continuing and then dwindling. But he is not, Krishna, as we know, he's not personally doing all of these things in the material world. He is simply engaged in his loving pastimes in the spiritual world. So, okay, so there's not so much time left, so we'll move on to the next verse. So this is the final verse of this chapter. Icha dvesha vihinena sarvatra samachetasa bhagavad bhakti yuktena prapta bhagavati gatihi. Freed from all hatred and desire, Gardama Muni, being equal to everyone because of discharging uncontaminated devotional service, ultimately attained the path back to Godhead. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, only by devotional service can one understand the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord, and after understanding him perfectly in his transcendental position, enter into the kingdom of God. The process of entering into the kingdom of God is Tripad Bhuti Gati, or the path back home, back to Godhead, by which one can attain the ultimate goal of life. Gardama Muni, by his perfect devotional knowledge and service, achieved this ultimate goal, which is known as Bhagavati Gatihi. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 24th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Renunciation of Gardama Muni. So, on this, in this verse, we're hearing about becoming free from all hatred and desire and being equal to everyone because of discharging uncontaminated devotional service. So this point about being freed from all hatred and desire and things like that, obviously that's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita as well, but also I wanted to give an example from Prahlad Maharaj. So obviously when we're when we're freed from all hatred and desire and becoming equal to everyone, that means, as explained by Prahlad Maharaj, that we don't see others in terms of friends and enemies. We don't see, okay, this person is my friend, so I will deal with him in this way, and this person is my enemy. No, they don't see it like that. So, yeah, the verse I wanted to recite is from Canto 7, Chapter 5, Text 12 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is Prahlad Maharaj speaking to his demonic teachers, Shanda and Amarka. And he is saying to his teachers, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with a living entity because of his devotional service, one becomes a Pandit and does not make distinctions between enemies, friends, and himself. Intelligently, he then thinks, every one of us is an eternal servant of God, and therefore we are not different from one another. And then, then obviously after this, Prahlad Maharaj is then in front of his father, and, his father is asking, what you learned in school. And then, as we know, he's, very angered by Prahlad Maharaj's answer. And then he's, after understanding that his son is a devotee of Vishnu, and he's furious that, how can you become a devotee of and worship um, my enemy, our enemy? Vishnu is our enemy. his father is saying that Vishnu killed my brother, so therefore he is our enemy. How dare you be a devotee of our enemy? And then Prahlad Maharaj is very simply, explaining to his father again this point that, we shouldn't see others in terms of friends and enemies, but we should see them equally. And then, just as Prabhupada has been referring to the Bhagavad Gita, pretty much all of these verses. So here he's now referring to to one of the most important verses of the Bhagavad Gita, one of the verses in the Chatushloki. So this is chapter 10, verse 10. So to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they come to me. So constantly devoted to serving me with love, that means, devotional service. So like it says here, only by devotional service we can understand the nature of the Lord, and then in that way Krishna helps us, to perfect that understanding of his transcendental position, and then then we can go back to him. So, and as we know, such a soul is very, very rare, to get to that point, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, is very, very rare. But this is the way to understand. So, we know this already, but it's always good to remind us that ultimately it's through devotional service, and not just the amount of knowledge that we gather, not necessarily the amount of books we read or the amount of shlokas that we memorize and things like that. But obviously these things can help, they can support us, but ultimately that devotional service needs to be there. And like we've mentioned several times during this class, that is the only thing that will fully satisfy us. And therefore that should be our goal of life, as explained here. So very, very elevated position that Kardama Muni is in here. A great devotee, and it's always very nice, always wonderful, and very purifying for us to hear about the great devotees, the glories of the devotees, their qualities. Just by hearing about it, it's so amazing and it's so powerful. So okay, so it's coming up to 8:45, so I'll stop sharing. But yeah, that was the few points that I wanted to share on these verses. But before we finish, does anyone have any questions or comments you'd like to add? Any corrections? Please feel free. Hare Krishna. Okay. Okay, so as we always say, that means the silence means everyone's understood everything or everyone's not understood anything. So hopefully it's the first one. So that being said, I guess we can end the class. Obviously, we have Nityananda Trayadashi coming up very soon. So very, very special time for us devotees as well, very important. So, we can obviously spend the next few days meditating on the glories of Lord Nityananda, hearing about Lord Nityananda, again, like I was just mentioning, you know, it's very, very purifying, very, very powerful. So yeah, so we can end with the Vaishnav pranams. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu vyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki
Jai Srila
Jai
Prabhupada
Prabhupada
ki
ki
Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the very nice class. Thank you. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you, everyone.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.